So right before we started, the rabbi took a call from his wife about some events he was doing, and he said, "Oh, it went great." And the first question out of his wife's mouth was there enough food? And I said that is the Jewish definition of if things went okay. Is there enough food?
And that's kidding. If we had run out of food, would have been a disaster. Forget about everything else.
I mean, we could talk about the food at an event for hours after the event. Like that's all we focus on when we go somewhere.
We have to have a food show.
I know. We really should.
That would probably be a good episode actually to get somebody on who's like an expert in Jewish cuisine.
That would be.
Oh yeah.
That would probably be. We should find somebody that could talk about that. That'd be good.
We could settle some debates.
No offense. I'm sure Haile could talk about it ad nauseum.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
The truth is, we're good at a lot of things, Jews. We're good at managing money. We're good at building companies. We're good at physics. We're good at owning professional sports teams. Cuisine, nah. It's not like the top 10 Jewish things. Kosher cuisine. It's like rhythm.
Integrating. It's true.
We try to dance. You ever go to a Jewish wedding? It's sad. It's so sad. To see these Jews trying to the best of our ability to keep up with the music, but so I put rhythm and Jewish cuisine in the same category.
Well,
we try
integrating with our Sephardi, North African, and Middle Eastern brothers and sisters helped us a tremendous amount.
They're better.
Nazi cuisines.
Our kishka and gribbinus and kugel.
Yeah.
It's
good,
and the filter fish to top it off. I told you about the time I went to Vons. Vons is a big department store. Supermarket here.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, I had to buy a jar of gefilte fish, which I never do. But I bring it up to the counter, and the kid, it's like 18, looks at it, looks at me, and says, "You eat this?" I go, "No, it's a prop. We're doing a play, and I need a prop." So no one's eating this.
Gefilte fish is a shanda.
Yeah.
It is. It is,
especially in a jar.
It is a tragedy.
A jar.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you make it,
I make
from
it
scratch,
good. I make it well.
We baked it. It's good. It's tasty, but that just the look with the jelly and that thing stuffed into that jar. It looks like a medical experiment gone terribly wrong.
It's disgusting.
It truly does. It does. It looks like in those horror movies where you have like the brains in the fluid. It's like what's the difference between this brain in the fluid in Dr. Frankenstein's lab and a jar of gefilte fish?
Well, this is a good segue into our topic today in a way, because we are doing a special episode on the upcoming Jewish New Year, otherwise known as Rosh Hashana. And many people will have a family meal or go to a shul meal or, a community dinner. And many people will showcase their cuisines that they grew up with at their Rosh Hashanah dinner. I think a brisket is a big deal. I don't know. It's not something that in the Orthodox world really was was not emphasized, something that I came to understand later, just from being around more secular and liberal Jews, that the food, right, Ta? Am I wrong? I don't remember food being such a central part of Rosh Hashanah. It was like a
right. No,
it was just like a regular Shabbos meal.
But dinners also there weren't like a Rosh Hashanah dinner. You came to services first night, and went home and did your thing. But now it's
much more of an American
Rosh Hashanah dinner, which I applaud.
Yeah.
You should still come to shul because the evening service is a short service on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
It's not a Yom Kippur service, but I love the idea. Communing over food is important, and Rosh Hashanah, to start off the year doing that, I think is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just, before we jump into kind of unpacking what Rosh Hashanah is and how we celebrate and what we should be thinking about and the questions that all of us have, it is, like we've said about a lot of things this year, going to be an interesting Rosh Hashanah, I think, for a lot of people, considering the year that the Jewish people have had, and what's been going on in Israel and what's been going on here. And it's a really amazing opportunity. I just want to make a pitch at the top of the show that it's a really incredible opportunity to take off work and participate in some way in the community observance of Rosh Hashanah, whether it's going to shul or having family dinner. I used to run the Hebrew school, the Torah school for the kids for my father's shul. And every year, I would beg the parents to take their kids out of school for Rosh Hashanah so they could come to services. We would do a youth minyan. And, parents would just kind of blow me off all the time. Some families were very consistent about taking off for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but most families, it wasn't really on their radar. And I always said, like, your kids are not going to remember whatever that day is of second grade or seventh grade or 10th grade, but they will remember that you kept them home from school because that day was important, or that you took off work, or that you did something important on that day. So I just want to encourage everyone before we start. I'm not doing it in a judging way. It's just, there's no better way to mark time than by doing something different and by doing some kind of ritual. And so if Rosh Hashanah means something to you, like, show your kids that it's important. So I just wanted to make that pitch off the top, but happy to turn it over. Just as a side, my father, many of you don't live here and don't know, but my father really, if I have to compliment him on anything, which is hard for me to do.
Jay, are we recording this?
I'm gonna timestamp this, and we're gonna cut it, and we're gonna play it on a loop on your birthday.
I have to say that my dad really shines on the high holidays. This is like made for him. He is the best high holidays rabbi that exists, in my opinion. And the proof is not just because I say it, it's because the room is packed every single year with hundreds of people who come to hear him and to be in the service with him. And so, why should I wait till you're 120 to say it? I could say it right now, that I've been very inspired over the years by your high holiday services. So nice.
Okay, you're not speaking.
Yeah.
Thank you for
that. So when am I
speaking? At your funeral. You're not speaking
at your funeral.
Because I just heard what you were going to say. So thank you. I need someone else, Yankee or Moishi, maybe. Fill in the gaps. But I appreciate it. Thank you so
you're
much.
Welcome.
Thanks, Leah.
So you'll let me know when my time slot is to speak, now that I complimented you.
It's not, it's so ironic because I wanted to start off this thing with an argument with you.
Oh, good. Go for it.
Last time we were saying, they don't argue enough on the podcast.
Go for it.
Then you go ahead and do that. So what am I supposed to say? You're the best daughter a father can have, besides Goldie.
Yeah. Thanks. So Jay, why don't you start with I don't know, what are you thinking about for Rosh Hashanah? What are you wondering about?
So it's interesting because a lot of the topics that we talk about on the show, we talk about like Kabbalah, and we talk about, tzedakah and the prayers and all those types of things. And the details of those things people don't really know or understand. It's not really sort of commonly understood thing. So it's very easy to broach a discussion around those topics. But when you come to something like Rosh Hashanah, that is to some degree or another so well understood, it's always difficult to know where to start.
Yeah.
So where I want to start is to ask the rabbi, what is the most common question that you get from the people in your congregation about Rosh Hashanah and its importance in the holiday?
Interesting. And it's a good question. I would say the number one thing, and it's interesting because this comes on the heels of what Chayaleah said, is why should I come to Shul on Rosh Hashanah? Yeah. I'm not a religious Jew. I don't really come much, for Shabbat. I don't really. If I celebrate the holidays, it's kind of like maybe Passover at a Seder or Hanukkah with the family. But I'm not a Jew really that does much ritual. So coming to Shul on Rosh Hashanah, I know it's going to be that there's long prayers, in a language that I don't speak. No one's going to tell me what page. I have to pay for seats. Then I have to pay for my family seats, and they don't even want to be there. So it's like taking your kids to a movie that they don't even want to see, and you're forcing them to go there. So it's a lot of money. There's not much inspiration. Why should I come, Rabbi? I think that would be the number one, objection to what people see. I rarely get a question about Kabbalistic insights into Rosh Hashanah.
Right,
Rabbi, can you tell me a little Kabbalistic insight into Rosh Hashanah? I mean, I wish I was getting more of those. But the congregation that we deal with and the type of people, because Shul by the Shore that myself and Chayaleah belong to is what we call an outreach shul. It's we don't have many Orthodox members to it. It's people that are interested in Yiddishkeit, but interested in small doses of Yiddishkeit. They haven't fully committed to it. And they're wonderful people and great people and special people. But I would say that is my number one question. Why, Rabbi? Should I take the
so
effort?
What's the answer?
I don't. What?
So what's the answer?
Oh! I have to have an answer to that. He didn't answer. He didn't ask me for an answer. He asked me what is the most common question. I didn't say I have an answer to that. Oh, I have to answer.
Try
that.
one.
So I say to them this: listen, try Shul by the Shore. That's where we've developed a certain style where we do a lot of explaining in English, and I could say I do a lot of speaking, more than the average rabbi probably. I do about 8 or 9 sermons on Rosh Hashana. Some people say it's too much.
Some people in your family say that. Yes.
Yeah, like my family probably says it's too much. They don't want to hear me anymore. But my idea is to, once people come in and are seated, I want to give them some meaning. And it's going to be very difficult to get them that meaning through the prayers. Not because the prayers aren't special. They are. But you have to really be knowledgeable both in the Hebrew and where the text comes from and what it means and the author of the prayer. So I try to, take several little chapters and explain it and talk about the issues of the day and that. And then there's the Torah reading and the Shofar. And then the Kailea said, I say to them, look, even if you come there and you stay for half an hour or for an hour, you don't have to stay for the entire service. The entire service takes about 4 hours, 5 hours, sometimes. You don't have to stay for the entire service. That's the morning service. Evening services are much shorter. But even that, you'll take some kind of an inspiration. And if you want your children to be Jewish and you want them to practice, there's going to be sometimes, a little sacrifice. Hey, we're not going to go to school today. We're going to go to shul. And in shul, we're going to sit and we'll sit quietly, while the congregation does its thing. And kids will remember. And then you'll get hopefully you'll get something out of it. So I encourage them to come, close to the Torah reading. You don't have to come at 9:30 when we start. You could come a little bit later, sit through Torah reading, which I explain, and then the blowing of the shofar, which everybody it's nice. It's nice to hear. It's a ritual that's different. And then by Musaf, after the blowing of the shofar, most people tend to leave.
But I want to just throw in one thing here because a lot of our listeners obviously are not going to be at Shul by the Shore. They're around the country or in other places. Right. And I think it's the intimidating aspect of going into a synagogue and not knowing anybody or not knowing the rabbi or, walking into a Chabad, let's say for the first time where you don't have to make a reservation. Everybody is kind of in the same boat and there's no reason really to be intimidated. And no one expects you to say anything or do anything. You don't have to read anything out loud. If you just sit there holding the book and meditate in your mind about something, that's perfectly fine. Judaism is really about the relationship between you and God, and you showing up there that day is, I think, and just hearing the shofar, for example, I mean, that's the main point, which we'll get to later. But, just showing up is already something. Because a lot of synagogues you're going to walk into, they're not going to have a rabbi like my father giving explanations. It's going to be more Hebrew. It's going to be more intimidating, but it doesn't matter. Just find a seat, take a book, and just allow yourself to spend an hour or two in a different space than you usually are, and being uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable sometimes. I don't know, Jay, what's it like for you when you stepped into a Chabad for the first time, or any shul?
Yeah, I don't think my experience is probably that much different than everybody else's. You know, it's you go, you go, you don't understand some portions of it, you understand other portions of it. I think good rabbis like your dad sort of explain to the dullard Jews what's happening, why you're doing what you're doing, and and that's great. And then there's other times you go and it is really just it's all in Hebrew and you're really just sort of lost as to what's going on, and you're like, all right, let's get through this.
Do you get anything out of going to shul when you've gone?
Oh yeah. I absolutely, for sure. Yeah. I enjoy going.
Yeah.
Do I enjoy the full 4 hours or 3 hours or whatever?
Right.
I would say my enjoyment wanes over time, but it's after I leave, I'm always glad.
Yeah.
100% of the time that I did.
Yeah. That's good.
Early on, I've learned, you have to be able to read the room.
Yeah.
One of the jobs of a rabbi, if you want to be successful as a rabbi, you have to be able to read the room. I always wanted a congregation that was learners. I didn't want a regular Orthodox congregation because that's how I grew up. Right. I grew up in a synagogue which was 100% Orthodox, very serious. We started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't break till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And all I could think about is give me a razor blade, and I want to end it now, okay? Because as there was a great Canadian singer, Gordon Lightfoot.
I love
Lightfoot. Remember, he was a little before Chailei's times, but he was an incredible singer, and he wrote a song about this terrible tragedy of the Edmund Fitzgeralds.
It's like Jay's favorite song. Don't worry.
It was a long song. It's almost as long as Yom Kippur service. It's a very long song, but there's one line in there that was haunting to me. And in middle, he asks when the sailors are drowning, he says, "Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?" That's how I felt in my shul on Yom Kippur. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the cantor turns the minutes to hours? Okay? And I used to sit there with please, Dad, can I just go into the bathroom? No, you're going to miss an important sentence. An important sentence? Dad, there's 300 pages. I mean, the big and important part is coming.
So
and it was just, so I swore then that if ever I get a congregation, it's going to be the anti one that I went to. And therefore, I always try to put myself in the shoes of the chicken, not the shoichet, not the one who's going to slaughter the chicken. I want to put myself in the shoes of the chicken that's just about to be slaughtered for a nice meal and see how the chicken feels. Okay? And I know that many people in America suffer from what we call, what page are we on in the synagogue blues?
Oh, yeah.
Because what page are we on? 174. 2 minutes later, 211. I mean, what happened to 175? Well, we passed that 5 minutes ago. Really?
Been there.
I mean, and then you see people that are literally turning the machzor over sideways. They're like trying.
No, but it's worse the other way. Sometimes I'm like, I'm on page 200, and it's like 25 minutes later, and I expect to be on 210, and meanwhile we're on 201, and I'm like, what? How did we only go one page in a half hour? So you have both problems.
So you have those people who are, suffer from what page are we on. That's why I mentioned that we constantly announce the pages. We constantly keep people informed. And like Kylie said, and like Jay said, you know what? It's not about the totality of the experience. It's not like you're going to go on a ride and every single second you're going to be bursting with excitement. But if you can, during the time that you are there, to make it meaningful to you, to find some line, some sentence, some thought, even if you can't, use the time for Rosh Hashana as every good businessman has to do inventory. Yeah. Just take that time of Rosh Hashana, which is really what it's all about, is to just sit there and reflect.
Right.
Reflect on what happened last year, not to the Jewish people, because I know how everyone's just going to feel down if you think about that. But you personally, what happened in your life this past year? Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you wish you would have done, or some of the things you wish you wouldn't have done? And it's also a time of reflection that, we're going to have a better year this year. We're hopeful this year. And the things that I need to repair from last year, I was not as sympathetic as I should have been. I was always on edge. I got angry when I shouldn't have gotten angry. I made promises I didn't keep. I disappointed people. So here's a great time, a wonderful time, because you're not at work. No one is stressing you out. You're sitting in your seat. This is not a quiz. This is not like, all of a sudden the rabbi is going to come down. Hey, Jay, come on up for our next contestant. We have from our island. We have our friend Jay. We're going to ask him some Kabbalistic questions about Rosh Hashana. No one's going to test you. No one's going to judge you. No one's going to do anything. So this is a time where you have that is peaceful, that is serene, and use it. It. You would pay literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to go to a seminar on the topics that we're talking about, on peace of mind, of finding meaning, of mindfulness. You go to a seminar over a weekend, it's going to cost you $3,000. Here you have a chance for whatever price you're going to pay. I mean, Shul Shor is pay as you come. I mean, we don't charge for tickets, but even if you paid, use that time meaningfully. Means when you walk out, you can say honestly to yourself, I got something out of this.
Yep,
I got something out of this. Something the rabbi said, something I read in the machzor, or even an insight that I came up with myself. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful time.
It's going to be hard for me this Rosh Hashanah because I was perfect this year. So I have nothing to reflect on.
So to that, there's always an expression in Yiddish. There's an expression in Yiddish that goes like this. As good is good is besser nicht besser.
Right.
If good is better not better.
Right.
You know, as good as it is, you know, better is always a little better. So, you know, listen, we all have what to pray for. I mean, you know, we all have families. Jay has a family. You have a family. Chele, I have a family. And even if you don't have a family, but everybody has a family. I mean, even if you don't have your own children, you have nieces, you have nephews, you have friends who have children.
Right.
It's a beautiful time to really just, you know, dig a little bit deeper into who you are and what your values are and who you know and where you're going in life.
So let me ask this. I think a lot of people, when they think of the concept of New Year, they think of January 1st, new year, great. And then everything is exactly the same the second you wake up on the morning of the first as it was before. And it's sort of a random line of demarcation in the calendar. What's different about the Jewish New Year from just the plain old, you know, American and worldwide calendar turning New Year? What's the difference in significance?
Rosh Hashana is, I mean, if you look into in the books and the Talmud and certainly, you know, in the esoteric teachings, of the Torah, Rosh Hashana is a brand new beginning. You are not the same person you were prior to this and then post Rosh Hashana. You're literally changed, a brand new individual. Now, when I say that, I understand that these words can fall very, fallow on American ears. Really? I mean, Rosh Hashanah is on Thursday. So you mean on Wednesday, I'm type A, and on Friday, I'm going to be type B. Really, Rabbi? I'm going to change? It's all in the attitude. Everything is in your attitude. If you believe that Rosh Hashanah is a serious time, that God, in his ultimate wisdom and his ultimate kindness, judges the world on Rosh Hashanah and takes a look at you and takes a look at your record and sees what you've done and what you could have done and the extra things that you did, because also I don't want people to sell themselves short. A lot of people use this time to reflect and they beat themselves up. It's not only a time for beating yourself up, it's also a time of congratulating yourself. There were things during this year, many, many, many Jews, because of what happened, October 7th, came out of their Jewish shell and all of a sudden began to express their Judaism in a number of different ways, even if it was marching, even if it was protesting, even if it was sending letters to your congressman or to the school board or to whatever. So here comes an opportunity for you to really reflect in yourself and you make the change. You make that change. If nothing happens, it's not the fault of Rosh Hashana.
Right.
Rosh Hashana is an opportunity. I mean, if you were sitting next to Bill Gates in 1983 and he told you about a small little company he was starting, Microsoft, and you didn't invest, is it Gates' fault? Now you're going to blame Bill Gates, you dummy. Why didn't you sell me better? Yeah. You should have pushed me. You should have come to my house and make me write the check. It's his fault. Right. The fact that I said, you're a geeky looking guy and you're never going to amount to anything because you're a nerd. So whose fault is that? So here, God gives us an opportunity on Rosh Hashanah. There's a 24 hours or 48 hours, however you're going to celebrate, to really do something special. And if nothing happens, so who are you going to blame? You're going to blame the shofar blower. You're going to blame the cantor because he lost his voice. Here's an opportunity. Use it. In American society, the secular world looks at a New Year's as a celebration, just a party. Oh, we've made it. Great, we've made it. Rosh Hashanah, that's part of it too. We've made it. We're thankful to God. They know we've made it, and we should say that thank you very much, because we know a lot of people didn't make it this year.
Right.
People passed away during this year. So number one, we're grateful, that we made it another year. But the fact that we can't use this time to really inspire ourselves and to really make resolutions that will make our lives better, then it's on us. And it's really on us. Because God has already given us the opportunity, so let's use it. Let's use that. So that's, I think, a major, major difference with Rosh Hashanah. Besides the seriousness of it, I mean, if you think about God judging you, you want to put your best foot forward, just like you would do and if you were, God forbid, in front of a secular judge, you would come in all of a sudden with a tie and your shoes would be polished, and they'd get you a new suit, and you'd get a haircut, and you'd cover up your swastika tattoos on your arm that you have, okay. Probably it's a good idea to cover them up, and then,
That's why I always wear long sleeves when we're recording.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you do that in a secular court. Why? Because you want them to judge you in the best favorable light. So you want to look like a mensch. Your lawyer is telling you that. So same thing is true when it comes to Rosh Hashanah in a spiritual sense, that God is judging us. God is looking at our account. Now, we believe that God is just and kind at the same time, just and kind. And he wants to give us, he wants to bless us. He wants to give us a good year. He doesn't want to punish us, God forbid, but he also wants to see some kind of resolve. Mm-hmm. He wants to see some kind of action on your part. Just show me something, reason why I should do this. And this is Rosh Hashanah. This is the crux of Rosh Hashanah, that we are crying out to him and we're saying to him, we want a relationship with you. We care about you. We want you to be our king. We want you to be our father. We want you to be our ruler. Only you are worthy of worship. And if there's something that we did wrong this year, just know that we did it unintentionally. We didn't want to harm anybody, and we certainly didn't want to get you angry. And therefore, please, when you're looking in the book for the next year, write me down for a good year and a healthy year, and my family and my neighbors and the world needs repair. So again, it's all that matters in America. It's all about opportunity. Grab that opportunity. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is a 10-day period where it's a wonderful, wonderful chance that we're not going to do this in the middle of the year. We're not going to do this in December, and we're not going to do this in March. Definitely not in July, in the summer, when we're all out traveling. But here is 10 days when we look a little bit more seriously at ourselves.
Correct.
And really try to just make some improvements.
Can you just map out quickly? I don't know if Jay was going to ask this, but Rosh Hashanah is a biblical holiday, right?
Correct.
And the holiday in the Torah is that in the 7th month on the first day, right? Is that how it phrases it in the Torah?
Yes.
It should be. It's called like the day of blowing the shofar, right? It's not called a new year in the Torah, is it?
No.
So it's a day of.
There's a number of
So could you talk about that maybe for a second?
There's a number of New Years in the Jewish calendar.
Right.
The Jewish calendar is different than the secular calendar in that we're a lunar calendar. Right. So our months actually start with Pesach and Nisan in the spring. That's the first month, and then runs. So Rosh Hashanah actually is the 7th month of the lunar calendar, but it is the first month of the solar when the world was created. Right. So the world was created in Tishrei on the 7th month, the first day of the 7th month. Actually, it is the day that Adam was created. The world was actually created a few days prior to that, 6 days prior to that. On the 6th day, Adam was created, and that's the day that we consider Rosh Hashanah for the years. So how old is the world? 57, 85, whatever. It's the first. And the Talmud talks about why this is the first of the years, and then Pesach is the first of the months. And there has some there's some differences in halacha in Jewish law. How you measure and how you would date a contract, etc., etc. But Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year,
right?
In the beginning of the year, and it is Yom Teruah, a day of sounding of the shofar, and the shofar represents, of course, a wake-up call. Right. That's what the shofar is. Uru uru minashem. Wake yourself up from your slumber. During the year, I know, and we don't think about these things much, so we let things go. But the shofar is kind of waking us up and telling us that now is the time to really reflect. Now is the time. If there's something that you need to repair, don't procrastinate. Right. That's one of the hardest things as a human being, that we procrastinate. Why should I do something that I can do in 2 weeks today? Why? Don't. This is coming and it's going. So you have just a few minutes on Rosh Hashanah, a few more minutes on Yom Kippur. But once Yom Kippur is over, it's over. It's gone, and no tears and nothing else is going to be able to bring that back. So that's what the shofar is, kind of a wake-up call to us to arise, and do something about it.
Let's talk about the shofar, because I think for most people, Jews and non-Jews alike, the image or the symbol or sort of the physical manifestation of the holiday is the shofar. So you mentioned that it's sort of a wake up. It's designed for it to be a wake up call. could you talk about its origins, why it's the shape it is, or it is the form that it is, as opposed to a bugle or something else you can blow into? Can you talk a little bit about the history of the shofar?
So the shofar, like many of the mitzvahs, has its origins in the oral tradition. Doesn't tell us in the Torah. You go through the Bible, you're not going to see where it tells you how a shofar should look or what kind of a blast that you should have. But the rabbis in the tractates of the Talmud explain to us that from tradition we know that it's a ram's horn, has to come off its head, and it has to be bore a hole from the beginning to the end, and through that's what we call a shofar, a ram's horn. If the shofar is split, it's not kosher. If it's covered over with other articles, it's not kosher. It has to be plain. As you see many shofars now, it could be very long, it could be very short. That size doesn't really matter when it comes to a shofar. As long as you can hold it and you can blow it, it's kosher. It's kosher. So it has to come from a certain animal, and it has to have a hole and bore a hole. Now, when it comes to making the sounds of the shofar, again, the Talmud goes into great length to tell us what exactly is a trua, Yom Trua. It's a day of shofar blasting. So it's kind of they kind of looked at it as if it's a sound of moaning, where people are crying. So there are some times when we burst out crying, and it's a rapid succession. It's like, and that would be the trua, a rapid session of sounds like. But then you have the tekiah, where it's a wail. Oh, where when you're sobbing, you're sobbing, and again. So it's based on the idea of repentance, where we know that we've done something wrong. We want to come into God's good graces. We want to feel something, but how are you really going to feel it? You drop a tear. It means that if you actually if it pushes you to the physical manifestation, of hurting, which is crying. And that's how the rabbis interpreted the moaning of the shofar. So you have that type of a sound. Then you have tekiah. Now, the rabbis were never happy just to have it one way or another way. So the other rabbis said, no. There's got to be a combination of both. And that's where the shvarim, that shever is called broken. So it's a short, long. It goes... So it's not like rapid, but it's also not long, like it's like a and that's so. And then you combine them all, and you look at the numbers of times it says about the blowing. So you're supposed to blow about 30 times, 30 blasts. So that's the first. And then of course the rabbis say, no, there's more than 30. There's 60. No, there's more than 60. There's 9, and then there's more. So we do about 100 of those over Rosh Hashana. And again, it's the idea is, as number one, a wake-up call, but number two, also, it's a reflection of repentance, where tshuva, returning to our source, is really the key ingredient over here. So wake up to what? I mean, I'm going to wake up a sleeping person and tell them, okay, so I'm up now, so what do you want me to do? Now it's time to take matters in your own hands, and now it's time that, say, if you have to repair something, now is the time, because once this is over, it's over. So
have either of you ever heard of Razel?
No.
He's so he was a rapper from like the 2000s, and he was an unbelievable beatboxer, incredible. And so I thought of him because I think the rabbi just did the Jewish version of beatboxing.
Oh, man.
With doing his shofar blows without a shofar. It's very very impressive.
I have to say that when the shofar is being, like, when it's going on in shul, I don't know if it's because I grew up with this enormous, like, sense of that moment and what it means and how you're supposed to feel and think. And, when I was raising my kids and they were little, I was holding 3 of them and one was crying and I was trying to get everyone to be quiet and just listen. And I couldn't really be in the moment, and then as they got older, and I started, actually thinking about what was going on around me at the time, like, it really is this powerful moment of, I don't know, it feels like you just can't look away from a mirror. You have to deal with who you are as a person. And I'm so distracted all of the time by everything around me, my phone, I never take a second to, like, actually think about who I am. And it's the shofar. I mean, if that's what Hashem meant about like waking up, I mean, I really understand it now more than ever, because how many moments do we have where we're just present, actually fully present, and actually facing who we are, And I think, I don't know, like I get caught up in thinking about how I treated other people or how other people treated me sometimes. And like, I'm like looking around, I'm like, does that person know how much they hurt me this year? Like, I hope they're paying attention during shofar blowing. But I think that like, as I mature, like that goes away and it becomes much more about like my personal responsibility for like my behavior, my actions, and how I have been, how I behaved over the year and what I want in the future. But it is, I have to say that it's a really, really powerful moment.
I could tell you from when I was a student, a rabbinical student, and until we moved out of town, I used to spend Rosh Hashana with the Rebbe in Crown Heights in 7-7.
Well, you have a great story.
And you can imagine.
You should tell the story.
What?
You should tell the story about
the shofar. Yeah. So that was about, so the room is packed. I mean, thousands of people fit into this shul. There's no seats. Very few people have seats, but you're davening together with a tzaddik, a true righteous person. In Rosh Hashana, if you want to be in the presence of a true righteous person, you couldn't get better than the Rebbe. And you believe that, his prayers up to heaven are in the express lane. Yours may be clogged up, with a lot of traffic, and the angels laughing and smirking when your prayers come up there. But you figured that if you're in the same room, my prayers will sneak in on the Rebbe's account. It'll hook up to his prayers and get up there. But one of the things the Rebbe used to do, he wasn't the chazan and he never led the prayers, but he did blow the shofar. The first 30 blasts, the Rebbe did do. And he would come up to the bima, and at that moment, the place was so quiet. All these thousands and thousands of people would just silence themselves and would listen to the Rebbe's blowing of the shofar. So one year, when I was still a younger man, and I still had some energy, and a friend of mine, I have to explain this, the Rebbe stood on a bima in middle of the room.
Like a little stage.
It was a platform, like a platform. He came up on a platform, and there was place for like a Torah and the shofars, and in front of the bima were like
there was
bars.
Yeah,
there were bars in front of the bima. So usually the stronger guys always got up to the bars to stand the first row, and they could look up and they could see the Rebbe. But this year we decided, no, we're going to do it. But we were two young guys with no big families, and no one expected us to do. So we chained ourselves to the bima. We went out and we bought a chain, and we came early in the morning to services, and we chained ourselves to the bima, literally with a lock, okay? And we put it around ourselves. So when services started, no one cared because they thought they're going to knock us out anyways, by the time the Rebbe comes up. So services started, and we weren't hassled. But as services were moving along, more and more people were coming in. And then the Torah's taken out for the Torah reading, which is just prior to the shofar blowing already. Now guys were standing, hey, move off, move away. And we're not moving. Well, what do you mean you're not moving? I said, we're not moving. We're this is where we're staying. And they said, no, you're not. We're moving. And they tried to move us out of that spot. I mean, I've been standing, guys were saying, I've been standing here for years. I say, well, this year I'm standing here. And me, my friend, as they were just knocking on us, and they were like pulling us, they're moving us out of, but they couldn't because we were chained to the bima. And they were like, what did you guys do? Are you nuts? Are you crazy or something? And we said, the only way that we are going to stay here is going to be that we chained ourselves there. And they couldn't get us out. We locked ourselves. But the story continues. So then the Rebbe comes up, and he always had a bunch of packages where people would write notes to him for blessings. And all of those packages he brought up with himself to the blowing, and his secretaries. So they brought up all these packages, and the Rebbe rearranged it. And the secretary puts a package right in front of me. Ugh. Right in front of where I'm standing. He puts he blocks my view of seeing the Rebbe. I go, oh, no. This can't
Not
happen.
After all the effort.
God. It's not real. It's not right. It's not right. I mean, I've taken such abuse here for 2 hours. They're banging on me and scratching me and like pulling me. And now you're going to put a package right in front where I can't see the Rebbe. Thank God, a miracle happened. The Rebbe began to rearrange the packages, and he opened up a spot, literally like the splitting of the Red Sea. And I was standing not nose to nose with him, but I was the first guy in his line.
Yeah.
Like I was looking up from the floor up to the platform, and then he blew the shofar, and then in the middle, he took his talus and put it over, and I could see under his talus.
Right.
And he was crying. The Rebbe was crying. I mean, because he knows it, because he knew in the notes that he had, not all of the notes were telling him, I won the lottery. Many of those notes were so sad.
Right.
Were so sad, and all the blessings and all the hardships and everything that people used to write to him, and he knew that. And then he picked up his talus and blew the second shot, and then again, that experience, like I would pay money, and then finally he finished, and he took his chauffeurs and secretaries, gathered up all of the packages, and they left the bima. I took out the key from my pocket. I opened up the lock, and I said, "Now, guys, I'm out of here. Thank you very much." And that was that was incredible. But that, to him, blowing of the shofar to the Rebbe was like literally looking at the face of God.
Right.
Literally, to him, it was he's standing himself in the presence of the Almighty, and he is the representative of the Jewish people, and he is the advocate. He was the advocate. He was the defense attorney.
Right.
Where if God had anything, that he was there to argue against any evil decrees.
That's right.
And the room was just so, you could feel the palpable feeling of holiness in that room. So we try in our Chabad houses, throughout the world, the 5,000 Chabad houses, to replicate it in like a millionth of a degree to that kind of holiness. And that's what Chayle is talking about, that when the shofar is sounded, everybody's quiet, the kids are quiet, people are quiet, just the one who blows the shofar is there. And it's an incredible experience if you allow yourself to feel that.
Right.
Now, if you're cynical and you come in there and you scoff at it and you're mocking it, of course nothing's going to happen, because you're mocking it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you allow yourself just to come in and say, "Hey, you know what? Let me put myself in a good frame of mind. Let me put myself in a positive frame of mind. See what I can get out of it." I guarantee it, you will get something out of this.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, we've learned a lot about the rabbi today. We learned he's a beatboxer, and he's also into Jewish mosh pits. So that's,
exactly.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, you can only do that once.
Yes.
You can do that because I can't explain to you how. If you think of mosh pit, I know it's tight. This was tighter than tight. I mean, everybody wanted to be in front of that bima to be able to see the Rebbe. So you had families with 7 or 8 brothers that would band together, and these guys were big guys, but that day, the prize went to 2 shrimps with a chain.
Hey, you know what?
We only did it once.
Who were you with?
I was with Rabbi Darren from Pittsburgh.
Oh, interesting.
Because we had just come back from spending 2 years in Seattle together, so we were very close. And we said, you know what, we have to do this once in our life to be able to share this story and just the experience of it. And
that's great.
It was incredible. Yeah.
Why is Rosh Hashana 2 days?
Okay. A very good, very, very good question. The origin of the 2 days is because before we had a calendar, the months were established through the testimony of witnesses, meaning a lunar month can only be 29 or 30 days. There's no lunar month more than 30 days, but it could be a month of 29 days. So when witnesses saw the birth of the new moon, wherever they were in Israel, they rushed up to Jerusalem and testified in front of the courts and said to them, "I saw the moon." The judges would then examine them to make sure that they were real, because the moon could only face a certain distance in different times of the year. So they were experts in astronomy. Even back then, 2,000 years ago, they knew exactly where in the horizon the moon is going to be first seen, where the tip is going to point to. So they questioned the witnesses, and if the witnesses were real, they made a proclamation. The new month is here, and since the Jewish holidays are based on the lunar calendar, it's very important for us to know when the first day of the month is. Okay. So what happens if witnesses can't make it, or it was cloudy? So now you're questioning, is it a 29th day month or is it a 30-day month? And sometimes the witnesses saw and they came and it was late. So they couldn't establish the 29th day as the first day. So they established the second day as the beginning of the month. So that's why Rosh Hashanah is what they call a Yom HaRichta. It's a long day. So even though we have a calendar now and we know for sure which day is the first day of the month of Tishrei, but since back in the days of the Talmud, they established a 2-day holiday, even in Israel, because the other holidays like Passover or Shavuos or Sukkot are 2 days in the diaspora. In Israel, they're 1 day. Because by that time, by the 15th of the month, we knew already. I mean, it's either 29 or 30.
Right.
So by the time Sukkot came along, we know exactly when the first day of the year is. But we didn't know that moment when the first day of the year is going to be established. So that's why it's a 2-day holiday, even in Israel. So this year, they get a taste of what we do. It's a Thursday, Friday, Shabbos.
Right.
It's a 3-day holiday. They generally don't experience this.
In Israel,
Sukkot, they're going to have Thursday, but Friday is going to be a weekday for them, and then Shabbos. But now, Rosh Hashanah, the diaspora Jews and the Israeli Jews are all going to celebrate 3 days together.
Correct.
That's why Rosh Hashanah is 2 days.
Got it. What is so I had one of the questions you just answered. I was going to ask about why is it celebrated when the moon is not visible?
What do you mean now? Are you saying now?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I guess originally.
Now, so now, what did they do if in case the moon was not visible, they would establish the 30th day as the month because they know you have to do some months. The month has to be that. So that wasn't a question to them. The question was only going to be: is this a full month or not a full month?
Right.
That's where you needed the witnesses. But if it was cloudy for 2 days, the courts would just take their matters in their own hands and just establish a month. Because you can't have there's never been a 31-day month.
Right.
That doesn't work. Astronomy doesn't work that way.
Gotcha.
The moon grows and diminishes, grows and diminishes, and it's born, at a certain time. So courts know that. But today this is all just historical. I mean, today we know when the first day of the month is, but since in Judaism and certainly in traditional Judaism, once something has been in effect, you can't abrogate that unless you have a court that's greater in numbers and in wisdoms. And since we don't have a court that's greater in number and wisdoms, that's why we still keep 2 days of all the holidays, even though we know perfectly well when Sukkot is on the 15th, and we know exactly when the 15th is.
Right.
But as a tradition, we keep 2 days.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm sure there's lots of answers to this question, but what are the ways that I guess maybe the top 3 ways or whatever ways that how we celebrate Rosh Hashanah has changed from the original holiday to today?
So, for example, in the days when the temple stood, if Rosh Hashanah was on Shabbos, they would blow the shofar in the temple. We don't. So if Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, we don't blow a shofar at all.
Okay. It's so weird.
We wait to the second day. So Shabbos overrides the blowing of the shofar, which is incredible. The thing about that, we just talked about the greatness of the shofar, but because they were worried people will carry the shofar in the street, that desecrates the Sabbath. So they made they put an injunction of not blowing the shofar, but they did in the temple.
Gotcha.
Temple time they blew it, even on Shabbos. That's one difference between what happened then. Second, a big part of the holiday was sacrifices.
Right.
Bringing the sacrifices, the Rosh Hashanah sacrifices. We don't have that. We don't have that today. So that's out. Instead of the sacrifices, we instituted prayer, much more prayer. They used to, in the olden days, they would mention certain, psalms that they would say, but the prayers were very different than we have today. They didn't have a siddur, certainly didn't have a machzor. That
the machzor is a prayer book for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's a special prayer book. Yeah.
Okay.
For that. And that only came out much later, centuries after the temple was destroyed. So we have many, many more prayers than they did during the temple, but they did many different actions like sacrifices, which we don't do today. And I think those are.
I would add one other thing, probably and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think the sort of emphasis on different food items that we've centered as ritual for Rosh Hashanah. I don't know if that's ancient, round challah or apples and honey or pomegranates, like things that I think people often think of as being biblical or ancient is kind of much more modern, and somehow like even some of them are even like Americanized in a way. I don't think they did that. Am I correct, Tom?
No, you're absolutely correct. Those are things that we picked up over the years, and like not eating nuts. There are people that don't eat any nuts. On Rosh Hashana, there are people that eat a head of a fish.
Right. At the meal, you have a head of
because
fish.
It's the head of the year, so it's the head of the fish. They eat that. So
we dip apples in honey because we want a sweet New Year. Honey. It's like a cute ritual, but I don't think there's any.
There's
it's not biblical.
Certainly, the new fruits on the second night of Rosh Hashanah, we eat new fruits. Again to show our thanksgiving, our gratitude for the new fruit and the new year. So those things, tashlich, where we go out to a body of water and cast our sins. Is ancient, but not biblical.
Right.
In a sense. So they didn't do that back. They didn't do that back then. But so there's many things that we picked up over the years that are instituted, in today's service where they did not have it.
Is it?
Back then.
Can I ask this question? I don't know. This might be like very kind of inside baseball, but I find that it's easier in a way. Let me say this in the right way without being judgmental, but like I feel like it's easier to focus on making round challah and eating apples and honey and, even going to tashlich, to like a body of water, than actually like being self-reflective and truly like taking the time to like be mindful about Rosh Hashana is. And I think we I don't know if we're kind of covering over because we don't want to do the hard work of it, and it's just easier to do those things. And so we make such a big deal about it. And I think, there's also, not to throw my friends under the bus here, but like, I think there's also like a social media aspect of it now that it's like, you have to have the right table.
So you are throwing your friends under the bus.
I am.
Okay.
But,
I just want to make sure.
like there's now like,
that's one of those expressions. I'm not going to throw my friends under the bus.
And then I will.
I'm going to throw my friends under the bus.
Yeah, like, okay. No, because there's now like a new social media aspect of it where you have to have the right tablescape. Like if your table is not like gorgeous and have like, honey sticks wrapped around the name tags at your table, and you don't have the apples, cut in a certain shape and whatever, like you're not keeping Rosh Hashanah the way that you should. And I feel like a lot of that is consumerism, it's social media, and it's masking what Rosh Hashanah really is about. And I don't know, I like doing some of that stuff because it makes the holiday fun and exciting, and but it just it's a distraction, really.
These are all supplementals,
right?
The round challah is not essential to Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
It's nice.
It's cute.
It's a nice theme because it's like around, like life is a circle. It's great. It's wonderful, and eating the apples and the honey is wonderful. But these are all supplemental things. The key is about who you are and what you are. But that's what we are. We love the sizzle.
Yeah.
This is America. We love the sizzle. Forget the steak. We're more impressed with the grilled onions. Oh, look at those grilled onions. You just paid $195 for a steak, and you're telling me about the grilled onions on the steak, idiot. It's that kind of thing. But this is America.
Yeah.
Americans love the sizzle.
Yeah.
That's why I've often said, when I first got into this business, I was in the business of religion. I came into this, to talk about religion, talk about the beauty of Judaism, talk about the history of Judaism. And I'm not in the business of religion anymore. I'm in the business of entertainment. Religion married to entertainment. So I have to entertain people on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. Why? Because what people will remember are the jokes.
Right.
If I tell one good joke on Rosh Hashanah and I get a good laugh, that's all they're going to remember. Oh, remember, Rabbi, you told that joke about the mother-in-law?
Yeah.
What about all the other things that I cried about and I sighed about and I deep thoughts?
Right.
Mm-hmm. No one cares. But that's the world we live in. That's the world we live in. We sell sizzle. If you go on Madison Avenue, we spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on advertisements. All of those advertisements are only there to enamor you to move and act on your emotions, not on your intellect.
Right. Of course.
So when you have a car that's driving down Freeway number 1, or number 1 highway in California, the ocean on the side, The mountains on the other side. It's a winding road. The Porsche zip doing it down the mountain. That's not telling you no one cares about the Hemi in that or exactly everything. That is all about emotions. We want the sizzle. Yeah. Then they put in this model next to you. So I once went into a Porsche store thinking that you get the model with the car.
God.
So I said, how much?
Where have we gone down this?
How much for the Porsche? How much for the Porsche? And doesn't the model come with the car? I saw you advertising on ABC. Where's the model? No, the model doesn't come with the car.
What do you mean? It was mom. It was mom. What do you mean?
No, I understand it was mom. Or Carl's Jr.'s commercials where you used to have those models eating those hamburgers.
Oh yeah.
But I think you bring up a good point, Halea, that I think this is just another thing about social media that ruins everything.
Right.
And it's Rosh Hashana, and it's for every holiday and everything, that you see these snippets of things that look perfect, right? These grandiose things that people do for these holidays, which obviously aren't perfect, right? It's just it's a second that's captured,
right?
It's make believe, right?
Yes,
but the perception is that it's perfect, and so now people feel like, oh well, I have to do that, whatever that thing is, that perfect Martha Stewart thing I saw on Instagram.
Exactly.
I have to do that, and I think it's really to the detriment of society as a whole, because just be good enough,
right?
Like it doesn't. You don't need to do what these people appear to be doing. Most of it they're not actually doing,
right?
But you don't need to do these things. Just if what you can do, and if you, because of money or time or whatever else, just do what you can do, and it's good enough,
right?
So true.
I just think back to, I grew up in, I've talked about my childhood a bit, and and I grew up in a very wealthy suburb of Boston, but I wasn't wealthy, and so, and you can imagine the difference between my bar mitzvah and like some of the other kids' bar mitzvahs. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I was just as happy to be done and to be getting all the gifts and the money after the bar mitzvah as the kids who had it at fancy country clubs and whatever else.
It's true.
So I think you miss the purpose of these things by trying to achieve what is for most people the unachievable.
Yeah.
Just be good enough and think about what's really important about these holidays and these experiences.
Yeah. It's probably a really good thing for Rosh Hashanah in general, for people to reflect on their relationship with social media and with their phones and like all of that stuff. I mean, because like I said before, we're so distracted, and it's a day to really think about it. I mean, we want to do that every Shabbos. Every Shabbos I go through my, like, this week I am not going to be tied to my phone, and I'm not going to, blah, blah. And then of course, 3 seconds after Shabbos ends, I'm online, I'm looking, I'm on WhatsApp, whatever. But I think Rosh Hashanah is like, if there's, I wish we could change. I mean, I know we don't do that, but if I could add a prayer or change one of the prayers to like reflect our modern distractions, I would love to do that, because that would be very meaningful, I think.
Sure.
Maybe for Yom Kippur, give me an idea. Maybe for Yom Kippur, we should put out a supplement to the Al-Chetz.
Yeah, exactly.
That one with and the confessions for all the sins I've done here, and all the sins I've done that, and all the sins I've done this, for all the sins I've done because of social media, for all the sins I've done because I spent too much time on the phone.
Right.
I should have been, paying more attention to my family.
Yeah.
Maybe we should think about something like that.
Yeah.
Put out a supplement and pass it out to people and say, when you're doing the Al-Chetz, we updated it a little bit.
Yeah.
We just talked about how things evolve over time with the holiday. So
there's absolutely nothing wrong in halacha with that.
Right.
You're not adding it. You're not instituting. You're not putting it into the
right. You're still doing the regular prayers.
You're not changing any of the prayers.
Yeah.
I want you to do the traditional prayers, but because we live in a society that is now so overwhelmed with social media, think about it. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Both what you said, both what you.
We're all just correct about everything.
Absolutely. Authenticity is out.
Yeah.
Being authentic is nothing.
I want to just touch on one quick point, if we can, and then we can talk about other things too. But on Rosh Hashanah, we read in one of the Torah readings, we do the story of Hannah and Elkanah, right? It's the Haftorah of, is it the second day or the first day? I always forget. The first day? The Haftorah of the first day, we read the story of Hannah, who was the wife of, was Elkanah a prophet? I really know this well, but he was a man in the Torah.
He was a man that traveled,
yes. And he had two wives, Penina and Hannah. And Penina had many children, and Hannah had no children. And I wanted to bring it up because we've talked about this actually in a previous episode, when we talked about Sarah and Rebecca both struggling with infertility. And on Rosh Hashanah, we talk about the story of Hannah, who's another, and Sarah, right? We read the portion about Sarah, and then we read the story about Hannah. And it's just, I think, to bring us around to the why we pray and what prayer can do for us and how we connect to Hashem through prayer, and that Hashem does answer prayers. Because I think for myself, one of the things that I struggled with a lot as a kid, being told, I had to pray every day in school. I had to pray in shul when we went as a family. And I always felt like, well, is God even listening? Like, what's the point of doing this? Is there even someone listening, and is he answering my prayers? And, when you're a kid, you can be young and foolish and say, I want to get, a brand new car this year. That's what I'm praying for on Rosh Hashanah. And then you don't get a car and you think, oh, see, God doesn't listen to anything I'm saying. And then translate that as an adult. And it's not that far off from the things that we are asking Hashem for. And I think that the rabbis picked sections of the Torah for us to read to remind us that prayer is a connection to Hashem. You're not asking for a favor and he's going to deliver something to your house next week. It's about having a relationship, and God knows what you need and what you desire and what's in your heart. And sometimes, I know this is a cliche, but sometimes a no is an answer too, right? When God doesn't give you something, that's also, there's a reason that God is not giving you the thing that you want. I know people who are praying for certain jobs or praying for whatever, and God, sometimes it's just, that's not the right thing for you. So that's part of God answering your prayers. And so I don't know, I just wanted to mention that because that's something I think about a lot.
But you have to, just what Hannah also teaches us, the story of Hannah and the story of Sarah, is they articulated their needs.
Right.
They weren't shy.
Right.
Hannah was at the tabernacle, went to the Mishkan. She stood before God. She prayed for it. She articulated it. She said it. She was focused. She wasn't shy. Even when Eli, the high priest, accused her of being drunk because she was in such sorrow that she couldn't get the words out. He thought that she was drunk. Even then, she says, "I'm not drunk. It's just I'm bitter. Because I want a child." And then she was blessed with Samuel, the great prophet. Samuel. But so there's nothing wrong with articulating in any language, in English or whatever, to say, if I need something, I'm going to demand, which is, oh, come on, you're going to demand of God. It's not nice to do that. He's so busy.
Yeah.
No. Do it. Articulate your needs, say your prayers, and especially if you pray for someone else.
Yeah.
If you have a need and you know that someone else has a need, Torah tells us that whoever prays for their friend gets answered first. So if you need a shidduch and your friend needs a shidduch and you pray that please send a shidduch to my friend, God is not going to remain a creditor. You care about other people and worry about other people as well. God is going to answer, but don't be afraid to demand,
right?
And don't sell yourself short. People, I tell the story of the guy who saved the Tsar's life. The Tsar wanted to honor him, reward him. I mean, you now you have the Tsar in the palm of your hands. I mean, you saved his life. You can ask for anything. What does the guy ask for? A softer mattress. Idiot.
Right.
Really? Really? You had the Tsar in your hand, and you said to him, "You know what? I would like a softer mattress." Okay, he got a softer mattress, and the Tsar got away without having to pay 2 million rubles, to the guy. So don't sell yourself short. Don't ask for a softer mattress. Don't ask for a back scratcher. That you could get at Target for 99 cents. You could get a back scratcher. Don't ask God to send you one, but ask for what you really need,
right?
And what we need as a people. First and foremost, peace, and well-being. But shoot high.
Yeah.
and then and ask it. And
so let me ask one more question before we wrap up. Unless there's other stuff you guys want to talk about. So for the tefillin wearers among us, what are the rules around tefillin for Rosh Hashanah?
No tefillin on Rosh Hashanah. Not the first day, not the second day, not on Sukkot the first day or the second day, not on Sukkot the last day. So there's 6 days. No, we don't put on tefillin anyways. The whole Sukkot, all 9 days, including Simchas Torah. But no tefillin on Rosh Hashanah, and no tefillin on Yom Kippur either.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to end off with, Ta, or you feel?
I think we covered a lot of topics. Yeah. We covered a lot of topics today, and I hope that people get something out of it. But the main thing I just want to say is, start off like you started, Chaleya. Take the opportunity, go to shul, get inspired, even if it's for an hour and a half, whatever the time that you can spend there, do it. You won't regret it.
Right.
And if you're having a rave, make sure to invite the rabbi, because he's a wild man at parties, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Shana Tova.
Talk to you soon.